Awesome. Well, I'm Brett Hadley, managing partner for Badass Brothers. My badass brother right there is JJ. We have started the firm about in 2019, and has been such an amazing venture because of the fact that we surround ourselves with amazing people. And so we have decided to do this type of event solely based on the fact that our investor and all of our investor groups have requested that we have specific topics, and we like to make sure that we're serving them and serving you all. So we have done a great job of actually partnering with people like our special guest tonight to make sure that we bring the most value as we possibly can to our community. So thank you all from the bottom of our heart for joining tonight. And I'm actually in the space of investor relations on the capital raising side specifically. And my brother, JJ, and I'll pass it over to him to kind of give you an insight of what he does and why he does it.
Yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. JJ Hadley with B.A.B. Investments, the better half of the Badass Bros. Yeah, we, like Brett said, started in 2019. We own and operate as general partners around 350 units across the nation. We are currently merging our companies with Greg, with Blue Sky and B.A.B, and going to do a company called Patriot Wealth Ventures, so we're looking forward to that. But yeah, I just live up here in Wyoming, and I primarily specialize in asset management on our portfolio, so I'll pass over to Greg.
Hey, thanks, JJ. My name is Greg Butcher. I am a retired Marine Corps officer, combat engineer when I was in. I retired in 2015 and have been doing this ever since. I had a day job for a while, also still working for the government, but whether as a contractor or as a GS, civil servant civilian. But for the last 2.5 years, I've been doing nothing but real estate. Scary when I think that I retired a little over 9 years ago now. That's almost frightening how fast the time has gone. But I was in California, in Southern California, not too far from Camp Pendleton, San Diego area, until just about 3 weeks ago, when I finally said enough of California, and we packed our bag, sold our house, and we are now in the Phoenix area in Arizona. Which is where I've concentrated for my property search, and have owned several properties in both Phoenix and Tucson. So a lot closer to that, closer to family. I've got a brother down in Tucson, so we're really excited to be here. Although we're kind of in a temporary facility right now until our house is done being built. So in the meantime, I've got a makeshift desk and I'm trying to make this all work. So so we'll get there. But yeah, my company's Blue Sky Equity Partners for now, soon to be merged, as JJ alluded to. And I've been doing syndications as a lead GP since 2016, and started the year before that with passive investments. I don't even know how many doors right now, like 1,200 roughly doors, I want to say, but not the doors are a good measure of portfolio size anyway. So with that, I'll let you turn it over to the next slide there, JJ.
Yeah, we have a bunch of different individuals that are on this call. We briefly mentioned that one of the two groups that we have is Greg's group in the Blue Sky Investor Club. We've got our B.A.B Investor Club members, and then obviously we're here to support not only those groups but their families and patriots, those who support these groups as well. So that's who's here tonight. I just wanted to make sure everybody understands that. Next slide, JJ. Mission and purpose. Greg, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So this doesn't change month to month. This is our why. This is why we do what we do and what we're trying to accomplish. Brett and I are both veterans. JJ is not, but he's a strong patriot. Supports the military and veterans, and we always talk about, we don't just work with veterans, we work with patriots too. The bottom line is, if you don't love our country, we're probably not going to get along. We're probably not the people for you. But I know everyone here is not, is in the former group. So we want to help people just like us, people who have a strong love for our country and may have done a number of years serving it, to get go in the same direction that we're going, the same direction, walk the same path we've already walked, and help maybe walk further past where we are, or we'll all get there together. So bottom line, if you're not financially free, we want to help you get there. And if you are, we want to help you build a legacy, because that's exactly what we're doing.
All right, so right now we'd like to turn it over to our guest speaker, Corey. Corey, I'll give you the screen share there, and we'll take it from there.
And just so everybody's aware, like Corey and I have known each other for many, many years. So we first met through the War Room, another mastermind group that is solely focused on our veterans as well. And he has come on several different times for us in several different capacities. And we've had several investors who have utilized his services. He is the subject matter expert for what you're going to hear tonight, self-directed IRAs, including the solo 401ks, and he can give you additional information just so you guys are aware. If in fact there's not something that hasn't been answered in the briefing today, because we're going to keep it a little bit higher level, he is more than happy, and I've seen it and I've heard it, that to get on a call with you to go in more in depth on what you need specifically for your portfolio. So thank you, Corey, so much. It's an honor to have you here tonight, and we'll turn it over to you, man.
I had to unmute myself there. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Brett, I really appreciate those kind words. As you mentioned, I'm always happy to help however I can. My specific expertise is here in self-directed retirement account investing, but in my years of experience here, I've learned a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So always happy to schedule those calls and discuss any needs that someone has and help them out further. So just so everyone understands, tonight I'm going to be presenting on self-directed retirement account investing. I'm going to cover some basics and really kind of hyper-focus, if you will, on real estate investment as an asset class. A little bit of background on myself. I've been with Advanta IRA since 2016, so just past 8 years last month. I used to serve as a client account manager. So for 5 years with the company, I had a roster of clients assigned to me. I'd field their calls with their questions, whether it's strategy or whether it's actually executing an investment transaction. So I've processed thousands of transactions for clients. I switched over about 3.5 years ago. In the middle of COVID, I decided to move out of state. Our main office is in Florida. I moved up to North Carolina, and I do education and networking now. So these types of webinars, I network at local real estate investor groups and other investor groups for people to learn how to take advantage of their retirement dollars through alternative investing with a self-directed account. All my contact information's here if you want to take that down. I've got my contact information at the end of the slide deck as well if you don't catch it right now, or I'm sure that the gentleman here will be able to share it to you if you reach out to them. Another quick rundown of my agenda today. I'm just going to cover the basics of what a self-directed account is, how to get one set up and funded, because there's a lot of misnomers. A lot of people think it's a tedious process or it's a tax burdensome process, which it's not. I'm going to break that all down for you. And then I'm going to go into real estate investing assets specifically. I'll cover a few different examples and a few different ways to use your retirement funds in real estate investing. And again, happy to answer your questions. So please feel free to utilize the chat. I'm sure the guys or Tony will keep an eye on that. And if any questions come up, we can address them as I go, so that I'm answering your questions as I'm doing the presentation, not towards the end where you maybe, have forgot about a question you wanted to ask or have been holding on to it the whole time.
Thanks, Corey, for mentioning that. That is huge, and we love these webinars to make sure, and we've seen the value that creates right now, and I know Corey is totally on board with that. If anybody has any questions at all, if you have a comment, whatever the case may be, please don't hesitate to say it right there on the spot. Thanks, Corey.
For sure. And to that point, a lot of times when I'm doing these presentations, it's the first time people are hearing about this at all. So no question is too silly or too small. Just ask it if you have it. I'm happy to address it. Someone else is going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, and you're used to dealing with hecklers as a part-time stand-up comedian too, which I thought was one of the most interesting things about you.
I Yeah, for the audience, I do that on the side as well. It's a bit of a hobby of mine. Not going to try to crack any crazy jokes here tonight, though.
It's fantastic
Um,
though.
just a little bit about Advanta IRA as a company. We've been in the self-directed investing space for over 20 years now. We've got just over 3 billion in assets under administration. So our
You can
clients
eat
as a
those.
collective have about
We're gonna go to bed pretty soon, okay, kids?
3.2 million. Um, all of our clients' funds that are not actively invested are insured in FDIC institutions, so your money's safe while you're waiting for the next deal to come up. And then all of our clients, as I mentioned earlier with my previous role, get a dedicated client account manager. So we really offer white glove customer service. That account manager usually has what I have, which is called a CISP designation, Certified IRA Services Professional. That means they've taken a test, they've done continuing education year after year to make sure they know what the IRS rules are and regulations are to guide you and assist you as effectively as possible in your self-directed investing journey. Now, what we can't do, and what I have on the disclaimer here, is prepare or provide any tax, legal, or financial advice. We are not what's called a fiduciary, like most of your current retirement accounts are, where you're with Fidelity or Edward Jones or T. Rowe Price or whoever it may be, where they're a fiduciary or a financial advisor guiding you on what they've done underwriting and due diligence on and advising you on what investments to make. We simply follow the IRS's rules, and you, as a self-directed investor, do your own due diligence, make your own choices for whatever investments you want to hold that those other companies will not let you hold. That's the space we fit in the retirement investment market. So again, my content here is for educational purposes. I can answer anything about IRS rules and regulations. I can loosely answer things that have to do with tax, legal, or financial advice, but for the most part, I'm going to have to defer those to your own professional and whatever your team looks like in those endeavors. So just a brief description of what asset classes can be self-directed. It's really, really broad. You can invest into just about anything you really want to with a retirement account. We're going to hyper-focus tonight on real estate as an asset class, but just as a real quick explanation here, you could do private lending, whether it's a secured loan like a mortgage lending through your retirement account or an unsecured loan, if you're comfortable enough with the borrower to just do a promissory note and let them borrow money. You can do precious metals, like certain types of coins, cryptocurrency. It's really, really broad. I'm going to cover the rules and what you can't invest into, which are really simple in a few slides, but just to paint a kind of broad picture here of the different asset classes that are allowable. The different account types that you can self-direct are pretty much most of your US-based retirement accounts. So a lot of people are familiar with your traditional and Roth IRAs. If you're a small business owner or self-employed, then a SEP IRA or a simple IRA or a solo 401k are great plan types because they have higher annual contribution limits. With those plans, though, you typically can't have W-2 wage earners or have to have a specific limited number of W-2 wage earners to fit into those plan type models. That's where the conversation with me about what your needs are is going to be taken right up front. And we're going to go through what your specific needs are, what your specific scenario is, and I'll point you in the direction of the right account type. I'm going to cover a little bit further as well, a little bit further along in the presentation, why the solo 401k might be a good plan type for you if you are someone that's self-employed or just running your own business, maybe with your spouse. There's some additional benefits there with that plan type specifically. But before I move on to the next slide, you can also do a health savings account if you're someone with a high deductible health policy, or an education savings account if you're someone that's looking to set aside money for the young ones in your life for educational expenses. Those plans are great. You can put $2,000 a year into them, self-direct them. And then when your own child becomes too old or doesn't need to utilize that plan anymore, it can actually be handed off, whatever balance is left in the account, to next of kin. So you can hand it off to a niece, a nephew, your kid's kid, something like that, when they're done utilizing the plan for educational use. And then again, if you have any questions about what plan type would fit your needs, that's what I'm here for. Most of these plans, or all of these plans really, you would typically roll over from an employer sponsored plan. I'll cover that more thoroughly in a few moments, but I just wanted to address why you're not seeing 403B or 457 or thrift savings plan listed here. I'll cover exactly why and how that's addressed in one of the next few slides.
Corey, a lot of our investors that have come to us that we're on investor calls daily with are, like you said right there, our 401k individuals who didn't even know they could use those funds to invest in alternative investments. So yes, can you talk a little bit, are you going to talk a little bit more about that 401k side and how they can use those company-sponsored 401ks to invest in alternative investments, whether it be real estate or these other investments that you talked about?
Yep, Brett, I'm going to break that down on the next slide, actually. I'm going to go into how to get the money moved over, why you would get the money moved over. Before I do that, though, just going to address real quickly why people choose to start self-directing. So the three common reasons we see clients come to us is because they learn that self-direction's even an option for them. So it's a new source of capital. If they've already been investing into an asset class and say, oh, I've got all this money in my retirement account, I didn't even know I could put it towards these investment strategies I've been doing otherwise. People find this as relief, if you will, from the stock market. A lot of people are not too happy with the stock market fluctuation over the past few years. And whether you're doing a full transition to self-direction or just diversifying your retirement account and breaking off a portion to start self-directing, that's a key reason people switch over. And then the tax benefits. So there's a lot of tax benefits that you obtain when you invest with your retirement account. There's also a handoff of some that you can't utilize when you use a retirement account. So when you invest with your retirement account, you're not really paying taxes at the point you're investing or the point your investment pays off dividends back into your account. If it's a tax deferred or traditional account, you're paying taxes on that money later in life when you draw it out of your retirement account. And that just gets added to your ordinary earned income for that tax filing year. So in theory, by the time you're really utilizing that, you're not working anymore. So your ordinary earned income is really just going to be what you're pulling out of your retirement account. Thus, you're likely in one of the lower or lowest tax brackets possible at that point. So it may be a good strategy for you. But if you're someone that wants to continue working until you're in the grave, maybe that burden would be better suited to pay the taxes now, do what's called a Roth conversion or contribute money into a Roth account where you don't get a tax write-off when you put money into the plan, and let that money grow completely tax-free. So when you want to take it out later, you do not have to pay taxes on it then. So that's the difference, some of the tax benefits, and again, reasons why people switch over to self-directed accounts. Now, as Brett kindly foreshadowed for me, I'm just going to tell you guys how easy it is to get these accounts funded. So as I mentioned on my first slide or just my introduction, a lot of people think that this is a time-consuming process or it generates a taxable event for you when you move money from a certain account into a self-directed account. And I want to dispel all of those misnomers right now. So put simply, there are two main ways people fund these accounts. The first way is a custodian to custodian transfer, and the second way is typically a direct rollover. An indirect rollover is also an option, but that's kind of 2B. I'll get into that as well. But let me just start with way number one, the transfer. When you're doing a transfer, you're basically saying, okay, I have an IRA with a managed custodian, and I want to move funds from that IRA to a self-directed custodian so I can participate in alternative investments. All that you're doing is completing a transfer request form for the company that you want to receive the money. They submit that to the back office of the company currently holding your money, and they usually wire or send a check of that money within a few business days. That is a non-taxable, non-reportable event. It just goes from one IRA's back office to the other IRA's back office and is really swift and fast as far as how quick that money gets moved over. Usually roughly about a week. It really depends on what company is currently holding your money. In our CRM, we've got a list of just about every company you could think of, and we can tell you on my introduction call or as I'm helping you through your application how long that company typically takes. If I hear Fidelity, I think, oh, great, Fidelity wires us funds in 3 to 5 business days. If I hear, oh, I've got an IRA with Chase Bank, for example, Chase Bank makes you jump through a few extra hoops. You're looking at more like a week and a half to 2 weeks. If you have an IRA through, typically like a bank is usually going to have a few additional requirements, but nothing that we don't already know and already know how to deal with and can set a reasonable expectation for you as to how long that's going to take. But again, transfers, non-taxable, non-reportable, back office to back office, very quick. Now with a rollover, which is kind of the more complex way to do this, what a rollover means is you've got funds typically in a previous employer-sponsored plan. So a job that you've left already. As soon as you leave a job, you're allowed to pull money out of that employer-sponsored plan, however, whenever you choose to do so, and put it wherever you'd like. So you're initiating a distribution out of your existing plan that does generate tax reporting. So you're distributing money out of the plan. As long as you roll it over directly into another qualifying plan, there is no taxable event. The money pushing into the new plan is also reported to the IRS. So as long as that dollar amount matches on what you took out to what you put into another plan, there's no taxable event taking place. It's a wash from that standpoint. And you can do that as frequently as you'd like to in general, period. Now, again, I just mentioned previous employer sponsored plans. So when you leave a job, anyone can do that whenever, however they want. It's also a quick note. A lot of times, if you don't do that and you just leave money sitting in an old job, they have the right to tell you you're not earning anymore based on that money. They'll keep it there and they won't tell you, hey, come pull your money out and move it somewhere else. And they could let you still benefit off of the pool of profit sharing as that money is being invested, or they could say, oh, you left, you're no longer going to benefit from this, but we're going to keep benefiting off of your dollars that we're investing off of. So if you're not sure, it's very important that you might want to reach out and check into that. I've seen a lot of people find that out and say, oh, I'm moving my money immediately now that I know I'm not earning any more off of it since I left that job 3-4 years ago. But if you're still employed somewhere, you may be able to do a rollover. The specific term or specific factor that you need to identify is if your plan agreement between the retirement account company that's holding that plan and your employer allows for what's called an in-service rollover. It's always a case-by-case scenario. It's always in the agreement between the employer and the plan provider that they're utilizing. So the direct specific question you want to verify is, am I eligible for an in-service rollover if you're still employed with that company? If the answer is yes, great. They may tell you you can only take a percentage or a set dollar amount, but at least you can take some. They may tell you you can take everything. They may tell you you have to wait until you reach a certain age or that you've been with the company for a certain tenure. Again, it's case by case. Those are just examples of what I've seen in my 8 years of experience in this industry.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, Corey, because I get that question all the time, and I've never known the exact answer. I'm like, well, you're going to have to talk to your previous plan administrator and find out. So hearing you say that, and the people that we talk to, hearing this from the horse's mouth, so to speak, is fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Greg. And just to the point of even asking that question, I try to outline it to you here as simply put as possible. But I'm also happy to make that phone call with you. If you want to facilitate that with me, where we call your plan provider or call your employer HR department and I facilitate those questions for you, just reach out to me and let me know. I've done it countless times to ask the right question and get to the right answer. So please let me know if I can help you in any capacity in doing that. So that just covers direct rollovers and transfers. There's one other rollover you can do, the indirect rollover. That's way less utilized, and there's a few additional stipulations, but real quickly, I'll just outline. An indirect rollover is where you do a distribution out of a qualifying plan. You take personal possession of the money, so you have that money deposited into your own bank account or have the check cut to you personally. If you do that, you have what's called 60 days from constructive receipt, meaning the day that the check hit your mailbox or the wire was deposited into your bank account, to push that money into another qualifying plan so that you do not get a tax liability for taking control of that money. That's only allowed once every rolling calendar year. So if you did it tomorrow, you'd have to wait until November 7th of 2025 before you're allowed to do it again. It's often called the 60-day bridge loan or bridge gap type deal. It's way less utilized. There's not a lot of reasons people would need to do that, but for full disclosure's sake, I figured I'd at least address it as well for the audience.
Nice. I did not know you could do that.
Hey, Corey, there's a question in the chat here from Amish.
Sure.
He's not sure if this is the right part of the presentation to ask, but he's asking, what is a backdoor conversion to Roth IRA?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the appropriate portion to ask that. So a backdoor conversion, it's basically when you have an income level that is too high to contribute directly into a Roth IRA. There are income limits if you exceed a certain, I don't have it off the tip of my tongue, but if you exceed a certain level of income, it might be around 190 or 200K, somewhere around there, maybe 210. I'm just spitballing. But if you exceed the income limit for contributing directly into a Roth IRA, what the backdoor means is you contribute into a traditional account, and once you have the money into the traditional account, you just do a Roth conversion of that money, or of that money plus whatever you already had in a traditional IRA. So it's really a workaround or a loophole that the IRS still has in place for those individuals where the rule doesn't let them contribute directly into a Roth account. I think you said Amish, if you're more interested in more of the nuances of that, I'm not going to jump too deeply into it. Reach out to me directly. I've got a specific webinar I could point you to where we talk. My colleague, if I'm not mistaken, Larissa is the last one that did that webinar, talks for an hour on backdoor Roth conversions and even what's called the mega Roth backdoor conversion, where you're utilizing a solo 401k plan and able to do a backdoor Roth conversion of almost $70,000 if you maximize everything out.
Nice.
Fantastic.
All right. So the IRS rules, I foreshadowed this earlier when I showed you guys the slide with just some of the few examples of asset classes you could invest into. It's very simple to tell you what you cannot invest into, whereas earlier I was saying you can invest into just about anything under the sun. So the only rules for assets that the IRS has is you can't invest into a life insurance policy or a hard to value collectible, anything subjective in value, like antiques, fine wine, artwork. I always use the example, I had a neighbor up the street at my last house that had a rusty old beat up 70s Corvette in his driveway. And I'm sure he looked at that thing and thought with a little bit of elbow grease, it'd be worth, $60,000, $70,000. And I looked at that thing as an eyesore up the street from my house, like, man, that's scrap metal. What are you doing with it? So anything like that, the IRS doesn't want you to hold in your retirement account. But outside of those asset classes, you can invest into anything you really want to. Precious metals, there's a kind of asterisk there. It cannot be active circulating currency. It has to be like American Eagle or silver bullion or gold bars, things like that. If you're interested in precious metals, just reach out. I can give you some more content on that. Those are the asset classes you can't invest into. The other way the IRS restricts these accounts is by labeling certain individuals close to you as disqualified persons, and you're not allowed to transact with disqualified persons, but you can partner with them. So that's meaning to say, I can't buy an asset from a disqualified person or let a disqualified person utilize an asset held in my retirement account. My next slide tells you exactly who and what disqualified persons are, but just to say, you can't transact, you can't do a deal and shake hands and make a transaction where a disqualified person's on the other side of the deal, but you can partner together with disqualified persons where you're sitting on the same side of the table and transact and invest together. Real quickly, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but when you're investing with retirement funds, I know a lot of this is tax advantage strategies. There are some taxes that may apply in certain scenarios. So real quickly, UBIT or unrelated business income tax is a tax that applies when you're making investments that are generating active income, where these accounts are set up and primarily supported to generate passive income. An example of that would be, hey, I want to use my retirement account to go buy a laundromat or a car wash. And that laundromat or car wash may need to have employees to run the business. So there may be subject to UBIT tax if you're running a functioning business through your retirement account. You're allowed to make the investment. Just be aware as you're going into it and doing your due diligence that you may be subject to paying UBIT if it's generating active income as opposed to solely passive income. The other tax that may apply in certain investment scenarios is called UDFI, unrelated debt finance income. That is a tax that applies to any leverage portion of an investment that your retirement account participates in. So if I wanted to go out and buy a piece of property with my retirement account, but I couldn't afford the property outright cash in my retirement account, I needed to take out a mortgage to buy it, the portion of the property that's mortgaged is going to be subject to UDFI tax. That's through an IRA account. And the big benefit there that I foreshadowed earlier, if you're using a solo 401k as opposed to an IRA, the solo 401ks are not subject to UDFI tax. So if you are someone that I was speaking about earlier that's self-employed or a small business owner, and you have the ability to set up a solo 401k plan, and you're looking to invest into asset classes that are going to utilize leverage, that's going to be the best plan type for you to avoid and get out of the way of the UDFI tax. That tax specifically is taxed at the trust tax level, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like 39%. It's really something you want to do your underwriting and due diligence on. If you're eligible to do a solo 401k to avoid it completely, that's a great strategy for you. I have a lot of other content on UBIT and UDFI. I'm not trying to go into the weeds on that here. I've got a one-page flyer I could send you. I've got a full educational webinar that I could point you to. So if you have interest or questions about that more specifically, let me know.
Corey, can you tell us real quick, or you is in the presentation, what the requirement is to open up a solo 401k as opposed to one of the other account types?
Yeah, so a solo 401k, the requirement is basically that you're generating income from a self-employed it doesn't even have to technically be an entity. You can list yourself as a sole proprietor and set up a solo 401k plan. The requirements are really, again, solo is the key word here. There are 401k plans that cover larger companies, but we just don't have that at this point in time. We have a company that we would refer clients to if their needs are larger than what our solo K plan fits. But it just has to be yourself and either a spouse or a business partner that are working under that entity or as sole proprietor, generating income for yourselves. And you do have to, when you set up one of those plan types, whether you're transferring or rolling over money from your existing retirement accounts into that plan, you do have to have the understanding that the IRS expects you to contribute into that plan within the first 2 to 3 years. There's no black and white rule, but they have an expectation that if you set up a solo 401k, you're generating income from the sponsoring entity or sponsoring business activities that you're using to set up the 401k so that you can make a contribution into it. If you intend to set one of those up and do not intend to contribute new money generated from that income source into the plan, at about the 2, 3 year mark, they're likely going to come back to you and say, hey, either put money into this or close it out. I don't think they would be as nice about it as I just articulated. But it's just something I'm trying to let everyone know if that's a plan type for you. In a more one-to-one conversation, I'd have that kind of more detailed version of that conversation with those people too.
Fantastic. Is it possible for someone who has, say they have a W-2 or 1099 job, but they have like a side hustle kind of thing where they have an LLC set up and they are generating income from that, for them to open a 401 solo 401k under that entity?
Yep. No, that's exactly the strategy. I don't want to give too many legal or tax advice for that matter, but when I hear someone that's a real estate investor and maybe they're just getting started in real estate investing, they've got maybe a few rental properties or something like that. I always say, hey, go speak to your CPA or tax preparer. I don't know what strategies they've already cooked up for you or what you're doing, but if it makes sense, set up an LLC, start paying yourself through that LLC so that you can then be eligible to set up a solo 401k plan. I can't really tell them that's a specific advice or strategy from my standpoint. It's just something I've seen other clients do, and it may be worthwhile looking into.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yep.
And Corey, are you going to be able to share your presentation as well with our group?
Of course. Yeah, I can send you guys a PDF of the slide deck for the audience, or anyone could email me directly, and I'm happy. I've got it already saved to my computer. I can email it back to anyone pretty quickly.
Awesome. We always send out all the folks who have registered for it. We'll send all of the information, including the recording that we have. And we will also include, Corey, if you don't mind sharing that one-page document, because we've had a lot of questions within the chat here in regards to UBIT and UDI-FI. That would be very beneficial.
Yep, no problem. I'll pull that after we're done tonight and email it over to you guys.
Thanks, sir.
So as I said on the last slide, just breaking down the rules for disqualified persons, it's basically as simply put as I can make it, the main trunk of your family tree. So if you're thinking of your family tree and all the branches, just think of the main trunk, your parents, your grandparents, as old as are still alive, your children, your grandchildren, as young as you are able to see in your lifetime, and any businesses those individuals own or control 50% or more of, or make day-to-day decisions on behalf of. Those are considered disqualified persons or disqualified businesses by extension of disqualified persons rules. So again, I can't buy a property in the town I'm going to send my kid to college in and let my son be the tenant of that property. I can't buy a property for commercial use and let my father's business be the tenant in one of the units. Those are just examples of disqualified transactions based on the disqualified persons rules. What is not labeled as a disqualified person are your siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, other distant relatives, any colleagues you have in the business network and ventures. It's really just these people listed here on this slide, anyone else you can transact with. Now, another thing I hear a lot is, well, what if I want to buy a property in my retirement account that I own right now, and I sell it to my brother, and then my brother sells it to my retirement account? You may get away with that when you do it, But in the long run, if you're ever audited in the future, that's what's called an arm's length or a step transaction. They'll see the chain of command there, see that you only sold it to the brother to circumvent the IRS's rules, and you're going to get a hefty, hefty hand slapping if that ever comes to play. So I would not try to bend or circumvent these rules. Just understand what they are. Make your strategies based on what they are to keep yourself, on the right side of the IRS, because it's a real hefty issue. If you're ever deemed to have done a prohibited transaction, the way the IRS looks at it is the year in which they found the prohibited transaction occurred, your IRA ceases to be an IRA from January 1st of that tax year. They distribute everything to you taxably, and then you also get hit with penalties and fines and things like that. So you do not want to put yourself in that situation. That's why we're experts in what you can and cannot do, and we're always here to answer your questions. So again, for what it's worth, we're here as a great resource, and hopefully I'm sharing some good information with everyone to that point and to that effect. It's just a few other additional examples of prohibited transactions. I feel like I went over them pretty thoroughly on the last slide. I think I even called 2 or 3 of these specifically out just verbally on that last slide. So with respect to that, it's always important to invest with people you know, build your network, join calls like this, like the War Room, like some of these other calls that I've also spoken in front of, and just know, like, trust everyone that you're dealing with. You don't want to find someone off the street and go to invest with them and have them be a shady character. So get word of mouth references, make sure you're in, social groups with people before you, put your dollars on the table with them. So real estate asset classes, we're going to talk in general about real estate, but I am going to kind of hyper focus on syndication specifically. So syndication is a limited partnership investment. You're putting up dollars, a general partnership team's doing actually all the work and everything for the deal that you've already done the review of and believe in the product that they're pushing for whatever they're going to do to that property. You put up the money as a capital call, and then you just get passive income flowing back into your retirement account. But you could also do a lot of other real estate strategies. You could own rental property. You could do fix and flips. If you're someone just getting started out and don't have a lot of money to get into a syndication or to buy a property, you could go to tax deed and lien auctions and start that way. You could do private lending, as I referenced earlier, where you're actually using your retirement account to be a mortgage lender through your retirement dollars. So there's a lot of different asset classes. Wholesaling can be done too. With wholesaling, I will say specifically, the level of wholesaling you do is going to toe into the waters of that UBTI tax or UBIT tax that I referenced earlier. If you're wholesaling 1, 2, 3 properties a year, or fix and flipping for that matter as well, that's perfectly fine. But if you're starting to get to 5, 6, 7, then you're kind of, from the IRS's eyes, running a wholesaling business or a home flipping business through your retirement account. There's no black and white rule. There's no threshold of 6 or more or 7 or more. Just be mindful if you're approaching scale on either of those strategies. Talk with your CPA, get advice from your CPA if you should be looking into or filing and paying UBIT tax. Now with real estate, when you're buying just a physical property, you're buying the property in the name of your retirement account. So in this example, it's really just buying a property outright with cash in your retirement account. You say to your account manager, hey, I want to get this property under contract, or maybe even, hey, I've already got this property under contract. If you have it under contract already and you put up an escrow deposit, that's fine, that's allowable. What we need to do then is do an addendum or an amendment to the contract. An assignment is not allowed because of disqualified persons rules. So make sure you get an addendum or an amendment done to convey the title of ownership from yourself personally to your retirement account. We're going to overfund at closing by the earnest or escrow deposit you've already put down, so that at the closing table, that money gets returned to you. Nothing ever technically came out of your pocket, and you bought the property outright in your retirement account. From there, all of the income and all of the expenses of the property have to flow through the retirement account. So if you need to put a new roof on that property, you got to pay for it out of the retirement account, not your pocket. As income gets generated, that flows back into your retirement account again, either tax deferred or tax free. You're setting your own regulations and rules and finding the tenants you want to put into the property. So you come up with how you want to prospect tenants, or you could even set up a property management agreement with a property manager if you wanted to do so. It's going to cut into your margins because they typically charge anywhere from 8 to 12% for property management. But if you want that kind of hands-off approach, you could certainly do it. with actually owning real estate. It is a more of kind of a hands-on strategy for a lot of investors, but again, it's really a do it your way type strategy as well. Again, all of the expenses have to be paid out of the retirement account. With Advanta, we have an online portal you can log into 24/7 and submit a payment request for your one-off expenses. For your utilities that come out monthly or regularly, we typically have what's called a payment authorization letter on file that says, hey, when the utilities come in, we already know that those are approved by the client. Go ahead and pay them out with the cash reserves that are sitting in the account. So you really don't even have to think about your power bill, your water bill, maybe sewage or trash, things like that. That just automatically flows in and out with an authorized payment authorization on file for you. And then again, property management, if you want to have a third party involved to kind of smooth the lines there and help you out, you can do so. It's completely up to you, depending on your strategy and what your margins look like. Now, managing the property, it's important to note you're not allowed to do any sweat equity on a property owned in your retirement account. So you can't change a light bulb. You can't be under the sink like this gentleman here in this picture. You have to use at least a handyman. It does not have to be licensed, insured, plumbers, electricians, so forth. You have the discretion to choose who you want to, as long as it's not yourself or a disqualified person. And then the cash flow, again, the money comes back into the retirement account, but you set the terms. You decide how much you want to charge for rent. You set the duration of the rental agreement. So you could do this as a short-term rental and list it on like Airbnb or VRBO. You could do a midterm rental. You could do long-term rentals. However you want to, the strategy is yours to choose. Now, syndication, again, I went over earlier, it's probably the highest utilized asset class that we see at Advanta IRA, because again, people are doing due diligence on a syndication, specifically with a general partnership team, like these gentlemen here are setting up with Patriot or with B.A.B and with Blue Sky. You do your research, you find if you want to participate in the project they've got going on, you process that transaction, and then the money flows back into your account. You can do private lending, like I explained earlier, or you could do a joint venture agreement even, where I might use cash in my retirement account to buy a piece of property, and I might have a joint venture agreement with a contractor who's going to demolish the home on the property, going to build out a new home. And then we have an agreement when we sell that after the bill out, I'm going to get 60% of the profit and proceeds, and my partner that did the construction work on it's going to get 40%. Those are a few different strategies that you can utilize for self-directed investing. So I've got a few case studies, and then we're going to bring it on home here. The first case study here is how easy it is to really invest into a syndication. So I've got Rebecca, who's got a retirement account. She's got a sum of money in a managed account, and she meets with John, who is a general partner or a syndicator, a capital raiser, a lot of different terms that kind of lead to the same type of person or profile we're putting here for John. John and Rebecca have a meeting. They go over the deal that he's got in place, and she decides she does want to participate. So Rebecca's role is going to be setting up a self-direct account, completing a transfer form, as I referenced earlier, to get the money moved over from her existing account. And either from Rebecca or from John directly, Advanta is going to receive the subscription agreement, so that while we're waiting on Rebecca's money to come in from Vanguard, in this case scenario, we're already getting Rebecca to approve the investment paperwork. So really, in turn, we can get this transaction turned around, executed, and funded from the time she opens her account until we're sending money for placing the investment in about a week and a half time frame. At minimum, we're looking at 7 days. The reason there is anytime a brand new IRA account is established, there's what's called a 7-day right of rescission period mandated by the IRS. So those first 7 days, the IRS doesn't even let you fund a transaction. That's why we're working ahead of time, getting the money moved in so that on that 7th day, the money's there and ready, getting the investment paperwork approved so that as long as the money is already there, we can fund that transaction on the 7th day. Because a lot of times you might find out about these deals 2 weeks before the final deadline. Sometimes, you may have a little bit more leeway if you're already working and networking with general partners and syndicators, but sometimes you might just be coming on at the tail end of the deal and really want to get your money into it. Just to kind of express that, rest assured, we can do it as quickly as possible. It's going to be making sure, in this case, Vanguard's a company that moves money quickly for us, and that you're diligent enough to go ahead and approve and execute the paperwork ahead of time, which is real simple. It takes you about 10 minutes via DocuSign to approve these types of documents. And you should have already done your research and due diligence on the paperwork before you're even sending it to execute the transaction. But again, very similar to real estate, The investment transaction is going to be titled in your retirement account. So not your social security number, just your retirement account's name and the tax ID number for your retirement account. Our signatory is going to sign it, not you personally signing it. You read and approve everything, so we're authorized to execute it for you, but the signature and the actual transaction is taking place in the name of your retirement account, not you personally, to avoid any potential tax liability or confusion there from the IRS's standpoint. And then the way this type of deal plays out, $50,000 as I used here as a rounded example for this type of transaction. And these numbers are rounded, but they're perfectly reasonable for this strategy. 8% preferred return paid annually. So that's $4,000 generated per year. After about 5 years, these deals typically go full cycle and you get your lump sum payment back plus any additional profits if the project went really well. So in this case scenario, we're generating $20,000 of preferred returns in total, plus an extra $15,000 lump sum at the end because the project went exceedingly well, better than the expectations of the general partnership team. So in 5 years of placing a $50,000 investment, Rebecca really generated $35,000 in profit. So you can see how those types of things are great. You do have to understand your money is going to be held and set in place for a longer period of time than some other investment strategies. But ideally, you partner with the right team, you do the good due diligence, the project goes well, and you turn out with a return like that.
Hey, Corey, you just mentioned something that had caught me off guard when I first opened up a self-directed retirement account about 9 years ago. And that was that I had to get, I didn't realize it at the time until after it was already open, until I got a letter from the IRS. But I actually had to go get a separate EIN, a separate tax ID number for my self-directed retirement account instead of filing for any taxes under my own social security number. So I just wanted to mention that, see if anything else you had to say about that.
Yeah, so with our administrative clients, so clients that just do an account with us and then invest directly through that account, we're using our trust tax ID number as Advanta IRA, the company. So that's covered there. Where you may have to get your own EIN number is if you're utilizing what's called checkbook control or the single member LLC strategy. I just did a webinar on that yesterday, actually. That's a strategy where you set up an LLC, you move all the money into the LLC, and then in the name of the LLC, you do these types of investments. Obviously, for that, to even get the LLC's bank account set up, you have to get a tax ID number. The other reason or rationale on our standpoint where a tax ID number would be required is if you're setting up a solo 401k plan, anytime a solo 401k plan exceeds $250,000 in value, you are required to get a tax ID number for it. Now, we have 3 different solo 401k plans that we offer. Our first one is called a DYO or Do Your Own Solo 401k. At that level, all you're really doing with us is leasing our 401k plan agreement and then serving as your own trustee and custodian of the solo 401k. So with that specific plan model, we do make our clients go out and get a tax ID number, again, because they have to go open a bank account in the direct name of their 401k, and they can't open that bank account without a tax ID number. So outside of your plan exceeding $250,000 in value, if you're a solo 401k client, or choosing our DYO solo 401k, or the third option is utilizing a checkbook control strategy, you don't necessarily have to get your own tax ID number if your administrator, like Advanta does, provides or prepares a trust tax ID number on behalf of that retirement account.
Awesome, thanks.
Yep. I know we're getting close on time. I've got, I think, 2 or 3 more case studies. I'll try to whiz through these real quick. So private lending, real quick. Sonia is trying to start a coffee shop. David has a retirement account. He decides that Sonia is a great neighbor and trying to do something good in their community. He's going to lend her money to get her coffee shop off the ground. So he just issues a promissory note for $100,000 at a 10% interest rate with a 1-year maturity. So after 12 months, David's IRA for a $100,000 investment generates $10,000 back. He helps a friend in his community get a new business off the ground, starting small businesses and helping contribute to that area. Just a quick case study on private lending. Now that in that case was an unsecured personal promissory note. That could also have been a secured promissory note where it's actually, instead of a mortgage, maybe another asset specifically gets recorded at the municipality level. So if Sonia defaulted on the loan, he would have some recourse and could claim an asset in return instead of the cash that he lent out. Purchasing rental real estate. Gentleman's got a 401k plan with a previous employer. He finds a property that he wants to use as a rental property. He goes ahead and does a rollover out of that plan, buys the property in the name of the retirement account, suits it up for renting, gets it rented out. In this case scenario, he rented it for 2 years for $1,500 a month. Then he sells the property for a profit. So he bought this property for, I think, $200,000 and then sells it for $275,000. So that's a $75,000 profit. In total, that's $111,000 generated. What I don't say here, but I will say out loud, is there could have been expenses in the meantime. He could have needed to put a roof on. So that could have been $10,000, $15,000 off the 111 that he generated, or put new flooring in, something like that. That all has to, again, come out of the retirement account, not out of David's personal pocket, or in this case, John's personal pocket. And then I believe the final case study here is fix and flip. So finding a distressed property that you can buy at a low value, upgrading it with the funds in your retirement account, and then turning around and selling it. So this gentleman finds a property he thinks he can buy for $150,000. He thinks it's going to need about $25,000 in rehab work. Because it's a cash deal, he can close really quickly. He's got the, $175,000 in his account ready. Processes the transaction, coordinates all the vendors because he can't do any sweat equity, and then sells the property when he's got it all up to snuff. In that case scenario, Evanta facilitates the transaction. David makes sure he approves and verifies all the actual vendors, approves the work. He can go on site and look at the work and make sure it's done up to his satisfaction. But again, he can't do any sweat equity there. In this case, after putting $175,000 into the property, he resells it for $225,000. That's $50,000 of profit generated. It's either tax deferred or tax free. Again, keep in mind, if you're doing this at scale, UBIT tax may come into play if David's doing this 6-7 times a year. There's no black and white rule. Talk to your CPA if you're getting to scale with this strategy. All right, rounding home. It's real quick to set up one of these accounts. It only takes about 15 minutes to complete our application. I have a conversation with you first, make sure we're setting you up with the right plan type and that I know what your strategies are. So what you're wanting to do with your retirement funds are going to fall within the IRS's rules, or I can maybe redirect you a little bit based on what you want to do if it is prohibited into a strategy that is within those rules. But getting the account open takes you about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to complete a DocuSign. Takes about a week from there to get the account funded. So if you have an investment already lined up, we can get it turned around pretty quickly. And then you can start investing into any asset class you'd really want to. Very sweet and simple. You have a client account manager dedicated to helping you with all your questions and all those strategies after I help you with the onboarding side of things. And if you want any additional educational content, one of the things outside of our customer service that we pride ourselves in is we put out the most free educational content in the self-directed industry. As I mentioned a few times, we do educational webinars every Tuesday and Thursday. They're recorded live just like this is. They go on our YouTube page. You could watch them back. There's years and years of previous content. We have a podcast called the Alternative Investing Advantage Podcast, hosted by my colleague Alex Perney, where he brings on guest speakers and they have more of an informal conversation about investment strategies. It's not as educationally driven as this presentation today and as our webinars are. And then we have a blog on kind of nerdy retirement account investing information and news. Last election cycle, that strategy I referenced with Greg earlier, the checkbook control strategy, got looped into a bill that was actually going to take away your ability to utilize checkbook control through a retirement account. And we got wind of it and we put a blog out and we started a change.org petition and we really helped get a lot of traction, enough so that they took that portion out of that bill and we are still allowed to utilize checkbook control. So if you're interested in any of that, check that out. Here's my contact information again. I feel like I've said enough. If anyone has any further questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to address them. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Corey. Does anybody have any questions for Corey? I want to say Brett and I, and I know Greg as well, we've done multiple syndications. I've used Corey probably around $500,000 to $700,000 worth of investors' funds. Going through Advanta, it's always a smooth process. We've done syndications, we've done the notes. Brett and I have taken a couple of notes with investors through our company, the promissory notes through Advanta. And we've got some joint ventures as well. So we've done all three of them that he talked about, and it's always a smooth process. So we do appreciate it, Corey. Thank you.
It's always good to hear. I really do stand behind our product and our company. So anytime I get good feedback like that, it's it's my goal from being on the account management side and now being on the onboarding and education side to just make sure from that first conversation to actually getting the investment funded and really going full cycle with those investments that clients are always satisfied. We keep our fees very reasonable and competitive in the industry. So really trying to keep everyone as happy as possible and really expanding people's knowledge that this even exists. Not a lot of people know that self-direction exists. There's a specific statistic I didn't reference in this presentation yet, but only about 4% of US-based retirement accounts are self-directed. And that's an industry with about $40 trillion in it. So 1.5 trillion or 4% of people's retirement accounts are being self-directed. That's a way low number for how powerful these tools are.
Absolutely, I agree.
Corey, that's exactly why we brought you on again, just because we have a lot of investors who are in the C-suite that are getting, they have their 401k, they've had it been for 30 years and they just didn't know. And so the most important thing that we want our investors to know is that they have the ability to use these types of investments outside of just cash, outside of the other items that we have. And so, Corey, absolutely, thank you for coming on. And if there's any specific questions afterwards, I've had several investors that reached out to Corey after the fact. He's super responsive to your needs. Don't hesitate to reach out to him. I put his information into the chat as well. So save the chat before you head on out. And we will make sure that we get the presentation, the one-page document that we talked about. And if there's anything additional that you guys would need, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
One more thing, guys, before we part. I did want to just take a moment. I know there's a lot of servicemen and women here on the call, so just a little bit ahead of time, I want to thank you for your service and hope you all have a great Veterans Day this upcoming Monday. With thrift savings plan specifically, which I'm sure a lot of you have, it used to be a little bit more of a tedious process to do a rollover out of a thrift savings plan. You used to have to print out a piece of paper and fill it out and mail it into them. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, roughly, they switched to an online system. So it's really sweet and simple. If you've left your military service, to get your TSP plan rolled over to a self-directed account. Be more than happy to help talk you through that. Like I said, with any of the other plan types. So just let me know. And again, thank you all for your service very much.
Hey, Greg,
Yeah.
I have a question, if you don't
Hey,
mind.
teacher, go ahead, please.
Hey, man, this guy's a level 10 boss with these IRAs. I would
Yeah, he
love to
is.
see this guy stand up, man. If you got a YouTube channel or something, please put it in the link.
No, I don't have a YouTube where I'm posting anything yet. I just started like June of last year, so really kind of new and green on that. Just chugging along at it. It's a passion I've had since I was like 10, 11, 12 years old. Just staying up late watching stand up on Comedy Central and stuff. So just pursuing it now. It just to kind of the reason behind that is I've got a little boy who will turn 3 tomorrow actually, and
Congratulations.
thank you. But I'd always had this passion for that. Like aside from my passion for financial literacy, which I started in accounting and business management type classes in high school. Stand-up comedy is another big passion of mine. And being a new father, I had a reflective moment about a year and a half ago, and I was like, I can't in good faith expect my son to be the man I want him to be and pursue the things in life that he really has a passion and wants to pursue if I'm not doing that actively myself. So I tried to start stand up right after college, and with the job I was working at the time, I wasn't able to get out often enough and really see improvement in myself. So I spent about 7 years not trying it, but knowing in the back of my head, this is something I really love, something I want to get back to. And then having that son and having that drive to be lead by example and be the father I want to be by example and provide that is what got me back into it. And again, with financial literacy too, like I grew up, my parents were in high school when they had me, so I didn't have anyone that taught me how to be financially, responsible. I pushed myself into that because I was like, I don't want to end up living in my hometown my whole life and working at a gas station or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I saw more and I wanted more out of life. So as I built that, I realized I have this level of expertise and this level of knowledge that would be best suited to share with people, to help people my age, younger than me, older than me, just know that these powers and these opportunities are out there for you to take.
Well,
Nice.
I'm gonna stalk you for that YouTube channel, man. So if you keep coming on, I'm gonna stalk you. So I can't wait to see it.
I'm with you, Dietrich. I
Thank
want to
you.
see that whenever you get around to it too, Corey. I'd love to see your stand up.
Corey,
sure.
I was coming down the stairs a few weeks ago, and my son, who's 9 years old, they were playing Cash Flow for Kids, and I highly recommend that for anybody out there that has kids. And they were playing, and my 9-year-old says, "Hey, Ashley, why'd you buy that? It's not even cash flowing." But her response was even better. It's not cash flowing yet. Proud daddy moment. But anyway, I wanted to share that with you. It's hey, it's talking about assets, liabilities, and cash flow. So it's just an amazing thing. And hey, I appreciate you sharing that, Corey.
For sure.
Yeah, thanks so much, Corey. I'm glad you brought that up about the TSP at the end there too, because that's something else I totally forgot about that, but that is very applicable to all the veterans that are out here. So yeah.
Amen.
Nice.